After a few traditional Sunday evening hymns, the pastor of the church slowly made his way to the pulpit. Before delivering the evening sermon, he introduced the guest minister who was leading the service. The pastor welcomed the guest, calling him one of his closest childhood friends, and asked him to take a few minutes to greet the congregation and share anything he felt was fitting for the service. With that, an elderly man walked up to the pulpit and began to speak. He started by saying, "A father, his son, and his son's friend were out sailing along the Pacific coast when a sudden storm made it impossible to head back to shore." The old man paused for a moment and made eye contact with two teenagers who were sitting in the congregation, showing more interest in the story than they had at any point in the service. He continued, "The father had to make the hardest decision of his life when he grabbed the lifeline. He had only seconds to decide which boy he would throw it to. The father knew his own son was a Christian, but his son's friend wasn't. The power of the waves couldn't compare to the pain of his decision. The father threw the lifeline to his son's friend and yelled, 'I love you, son.' By the time the father pulled the boy back to the overturned boat, his own son had disappeared beneath the waves, into the darkness of the night. His body was never recovered." Now the two teenagers were sitting up straight in their pews, waiting to hear more. The old preacher went on, "The father couldn't bear the thought of his son's friend dying without knowing Jesus. He knew his own son would spend eternity with Jesus, so he sacrificed his son to save his friend. How great is the love of God that he would do the same for us. For our salvation, our Heavenly Father sacrificed his only son. I urge you to grab hold of the lifeline and accept his offer of rescue." The room fell silent as the old man returned to his seat. After a moment, the pastor slowly returned to the pulpit, gave a brief sermon, and extended an invitation for anyone to respond to the message, but no one came forward. After the service, the two teenagers approached the elderly man. "That was a nice story," one of them said politely, "but I don't think it's very realistic for a father to give up his only son in the hopes that the other boy will become a Christian." The old man looked down at his well-worn Bible and said, "Yeah, you've got a point there." Then looking back up at the boys, his smile faded into a sad expression. "It doesn't seem very realistic, does it? But I'm here to tell you that I understand more than most the pain God went through in giving up his only son. You see, I'm the father who lost his son to the sea that day, and your pastor is the boy I saved." Watch this powerful story about love, sacrifice, and faith. It reminds us of the amazing love God showed by giving his only son for our salvation. Share this video to spread the message of God's love